Benny here. We have the functioning partner of the operation as well, the man that knows how to kind of get things done, and that's Paul Lysek. Paul, how are you as he pours a very tall glass?
I'm doing great. Getting it going here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We appreciate y'all kind of coming on to shoot the shit. Y'all have a natural wine distribution company based out of Denver. I think for those that follow us on social media have seen us flaunt it, drink it, bathe in it over the course of the summer.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also
nice
in restaurants across the city as well. So we kind of wanted to learn a little bit about what this this natural wine crave has taken over America. We wanted to not dive into that, but also talk about y'all's funky wines as well. But before we do any of that, we like to start every episode, every season. It's always going to be the same with the same question. And so I'm going to pass it off to Chris, and I'm going to go drink a glass of wine and eat a taco.
Enjoy. All right, we'll start with you, Benny.
Yeah.
Are you a transplant or a native to Colorado?
I'm a fucking transplant, dude.
Where were you coming from?
New Orleans.
Where?
New Orleans.
He said New Orleans, but, I mean, he's not from New Orleans either.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from, if we're going to do all this whole thing.
Well, just give us the quick skinny.
I'm from Rhode Island, and I've, moved to a bunch of places, like, as a musician, it's kind of the way it is. And Boston, New York, did a lot of work on cruise ships, spent some time touring overseas, but mainly I spent a lot of time in, like, Boston, then New Orleans for 5 years, and then now I'm here for the time being, and I'm loving it. It's beautiful.
Okay, but you grew up in Rhode Island.
Heck yeah, I'm a Rhode Island. I went to high school in Rhode Island. That's like when everyone's like, "Where'd you grow up?" It's like that's when people really form. Like when you're in like a freshman to like a senior, you get really set in some, it's pretty instrumental in your upbringing. So I'm a wicked Rhode Islander, wicked hardcore. There we go.
Were you like near the water growing up?
Yeah, Rhode Island is on the water. Yeah, it's an ocean.
Awful follow-up question, Chris. Let's. I
meant like but you know what I meant. Like I meant like were you out on boats? Like is that? I mean, was that part of you growing up?
Yeah, I wasn't Johnny Sailboat over here, but I was. Yeah, I'm on a peninsula, essentially my town, and I got the swimming merit badge, and I was a Boy Scout, and but the state is called the Ocean State, and it's pretty hard to miss.
About this interview is the next part, and that's Paul. So, Paul, I don't think I have as studded of a credit sheet for you, but I'm going to say that you are easily the more fashionable of the two. Every time I see y'all, you are the life of the party, and you are the managing operator of the Benny and Zoid wine selections, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
That's a pretty star-studded still.
It is. It's a pretty good gig. We have a good time.
So, Benny, turn your mic off. How you're rolling it around your hand, I can hear it.
What? All right, fine.
Paul, so you're a Providence kid as well? Are you a Northeasterner?
No, I grew up in upstate New York.
Okay,
so
that's right.
I'm from Buffalo originally.
Ugh.
Chicken wings.
Go Bills. Hello.
Good job,
and lived in
Chris.
Washington, D.C. for a very long time before we moved out here.
All right, so what brought you west?
My girlfriend, Kendall. Shout out to Kendall.
Shout out.
Great
It's
name.
going to be shout out central today, by the way. She grew up here. We used to come out all the time and visit family, visit our friends. And, wanted a break from the East Coast, wanted a change of scenery, change of pace. And so we decided to come out here, give it a shot. The majority of my career has always been in restaurants, so that's kind of how I started when I came out here before getting hooked up with Benny.
Big time DC boy over here for a long time, right?
Major DC.
Was
Major
it a fine
DC
dining scene, like high scale restaurant?
Yeah,
or
I mean, I
kind
guess
of
it was kind of everything. Like my first gigs were,
like a pizza joint, like everybody else. Chris and I both worked in the pizza
way back
industry.
when. Yeah, like flipping burgers and doing fish fries at a like concession stand kind of thing was the
Oh,
first gig.
shit.
Was the first gig.
Fuck yeah!
But the first wine gig was in the the steakhouse situation, like the very classic old school like waiters in tuxedos, Sinatra on the radio kind of situation, which is very prevalent in DC and a major part of the culture and super fun to be a part of. But yeah, over some time there, it was more small restaurants. Very.
How did you find your way in? Was it like, oh, I'm going to take the first level of the sommelier thing because I'm in the restaurant industry?
Yes.
And then you just slowly you've progressed through, and now you're you feel like you can see a fair amount of folks jump from restaurant to like wine sales rep into the distribution side.
Yeah.
Did you kind of follow that same path when you came west? Did you start in the restaurants here?
No, I started in restaurants at Marin.
Oh yeah, over there with Max.
Yes,
and
over there with
Mary
Max
Allison and
Mary Ann McLean, two of our best friends of all time. Shout out to Mary Ann McLean. And then made that transition. They introduced me to Benny, and sort of did both for a long time, and have been really focused on this for the last only few months. To be honest, in terms of full time, it's always been splitting it. So that's been a real blessing to be able to focus on this full time.
I know that feeling oh too well.
So question there though, how did you go from like steakhouse type wines to these funky ones?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I was gonna see how quickly we're gonna go right into it. I love that
100%.
question. Fuck old world stuff.
It was I feel like a slow kind of transition because at the time when I was in DC, these kind of wines didn't really exist there yet. They do now. Luckily, the scene is really changing in a great way. But it was when I spent a little bit of time living in New York City that I started going to like the Four Horsemen and 10 Bells and all of these great, very now well-known natural wine bars, and kind of trying these things that blew my mind, that I think everybody who tries these wines for the first time has that experience when you taste it, and it's unlike anything you've ever had before. And you can really feel how alive and vibrant they are, and it's just such a major departure from the other things that I had worked with in the past. I just immediately was hooked.
I love it.
Well,
that's
you,
what I was.
Benny, how'd you get into this funky biz?
Hold up, you talking about winemaking, wine selling, or just wine loving?
Yeah, let's start with the wine loving. How did you? I mean, everyone knows you as this lively sex beast of a musician, but when did you become an oñophile or whatever the fucking term is that of those nerds that love booze?
I think I was playing a show for Pretty Lights in New Orleans, the last show, and Ryan Zoidis, who's Benny and Zoid selection, he's the Zoid, he's the sax player for Lettuce. He brought me a natural wine by Frank Cornelissen. I think it was Susukaro, that's the name, Susukaro, I can't say that, I'll never be able to say it correctly. And it was just so electric and unlike anything I've ever had, and it really affected me in a way, so when I went on stage, I was like, just really juiced, and I just only a glass or two at the most, some water, some tea, just like keeping it light before the gig, and I just felt totally different. I played differently. I interacted with the audience. It wasn't just because it's booze. There are many types of booze, but I think we can all attest to that when you drink this, wines that are just less, hands-on approach, just nothing in, nothing out, you do feel different than you do other ones, that have a little more manipulation. So that's why I just got in a quest to keep that vibe. Every time I play or every time I just like that energy, and I want to tell everybody about it. Annoyingly.
Hey, so as someone who also used to live in New Orleans, what is, and obviously the scene about these, especially these kind of wackier natural wines, because we spoke with your friend Wendy Lynn, who I'm sure y'all will speak with in Labor Day weekend or whatnot, but she was talking about natural wine scenes here. What was the natural wine scene like in New Orleans back then, or what is it like now? I don't frequently, we did the Bacchanal episode with Joaquin, and that was a fantastic time just talking and shooting the shit. But is the scene as vibrant in this realm like Denver is and other smaller communities, in the mid-market cities?
Yeah, I mean, because New Orleans is obviously kind of an old, can be construed as an old guard town, but there's so many chefs that are coming, bringing their influences. Like, what's the great? She was on Top Chef. What's the great? The great restaurant at Old Number 55, Compare La Pan.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Oh, jeez. Thank you. I knew that. Nina Compton.
Nina Compton.
Who has some St. Lucia roots. So so many people that's what New Orleans is. I don't have to tell anyone that. Bringing all of the cultures together. And wine is finally, I think, caught up in the last 10 years. But in the last, 5 years, there's been restaurants that are starting to play ball. There's some great, really, really amazing wine stores because each state has different natural wines that they get. and different amounts and different blah blah blah. So each store, each state is pretty different. They're pretty different, and it makes it a lot more fun to shop. And then the restaurants, it's a whole different scene. So I think it's got a lot better. It definitely has some more room to grow. I'd love to see natural wine like on all the music places. It's like, but music places are hard to make a margin, and it's hard to stay in business. I get it. So you want to have, things that are gonna make you good money. And natural wine you just have to look for it and be shown, things that are, people think natural wine is expensive, and that's why a lot of restaurants and a lot of bars and a lot of music clubs you'll see one thing that's dope and a lot of things that aren't that dope. And I think it's a money driven decision, but I cannot speak for everyone, that's for sure. But in music clubs, there's a couple in Denver that are playing ball. Cervantes only has natural wine now. Things like that. There's
Scott and his team run a top.
They're the best.
They are. I mean, I'll be there Friday. I love it. I think it was the first experience I had. Y'all all just drank in unison, and that was fantastic. But and I'm talking about then we kind of jumped from New Orleans back to Denver. That's one thing I definitely wanted to harp on was some of these people who are playing ball. Cervantes, I was unaware that they were in fact in that same conversation.
Yeah, it was a pandemic move. I used to live with Scott at his house for a
Aloha
period.
Beach.
Yes, sir. And I just I was like we have, and as do other people.
Scott on the pod too.
You do. He would be for the city of Denver, and like the history of the music scene and the 5 points and all the things that he's trying to keep within the neighborhood. I think it's a really great thing.
Yeah, he's doing the Lord's work over there, and he's also bringing in fun bands. So if you haven't ever been to Cervantes, I know a couple of folks
That's
out
where
there
you go.
who haven't. I'd recommend going. It's a great place to catch a live show and a vibe.
Yep.
All right, so back to I forgot natural wines in our
New
community.
New Orleans is doing great. Denver is obviously changing. Every 3 months, I would say.
I mean, y'all both come from relatively larger markets, whether it be food scenes or just growing up and such. Buffalo's fucking bigger than where we grew up, at least. That's a fair point.
100%.
Where do we stack up in regards to that? Are we progressing quicker than the average bear?
Paul?
When you see Nashville and Austin, are we ahead of schedule in that scene?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you can see a lot of really natural growth happening in the city, and it's all based on people that are interested and driven in this sort of like pursuit of quality that maybe caught on a little bit quicker here because more people were doing it well. So you have I think of Caroline over at Annette, and obviously Bobby and
Shout out
Carlin
Caroline.
and their whole crew. Shout out all
Caroline
those cats.
Glover, two-time guest on the pod. And easily possibly top 3 restaurants in the Denver metro.
100%.
Heard.
But these people that again are focused on quality, interested in doing things the best way that they are able to do it, that I think is what leads to a vibrant wine community as well. When you have it in the restaurant community, they just kind of go hand in hand. So yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a small but really mighty group of people that just want to knock it out of the park and bring something extremely cool, extremely high quality to Denver. And the wine scene is always going to follow with that because they're going to be driven to want to have the best things that you can drink. I kind of equate it to chefs who look for the best ingredients, and it's kind of an endless pursuit of the best that you can find. That, for me, is the same as natural wine because we're talking about farmers who grow these, this organic or biodynamic fruit. And who do it so well that they're able to make these wines without adding a bunch of crap to it to make something that's just really beautiful and compelling. So those pursuits kind of go hand in hand for sure.
Ironically, and
well said, Paulie.
We've now said it.
Thank you.
We've said it twice, but shout out to Wendy Lynn. She said that that's what she does as well. And for those that don't know, it was an episode last season, obviously, but 10 episodes ago, she mentioned how she goes to restaurants that only serve natural wines because of that exact reason. Because if you care that much about your wine list, then you're going to have that level of at least perfection or excellence across the board, which is exactly what you just said.
For sure.
And she bases hers off of sourdough bread because she's a Southerner like us, and we're bread eaters back home. So
the bread is dope.
Love carbs.
But y'all are all in the same. It seems like y'all the
quality.
message is clear. Yeah, it's quality over just like getting an extra 20 chicken tenders. I get that, but it seems